started promptly at 8:30 because you guys are punctual and have other bigger and better things to do. Obviously, as you can see from the board, this topic is called Introduction to Behavior-Based Safety. Last month we talked about leading indicators. And leading indicators are those things, those behaviors that we exhibit that's really going to... Oh!
I'm a witness.
Don't
Hear that thing snap in half.
I know, be careful, because I've heard people getting impaled, but it's so bad. Yeah, last month we talked about leading
Busted
indicators.
all the way.
We defined two things. Lagging indicators are those things that are behind us. Those are those injuries and accidents that occur that we normally take a look at as these recordables, those are recordables. And when you ask a location, how safe were you last year? They stop for a second and they think, well, how many injuries did we have? Well, if we take a look at that as the indication of how safe we are, that's inappropriate. That almost means like you have to wait till you have an injury before we go, oh, we got to do something, we got to work on something. I also shared with you, and out of the 36 municipals that I did this questionnaire, that was staggering. And it was, some of the behaviors that you exhibit, like speeding, not wearing your safety belt, not wearing your PPEs. The list of questions that I asked was pretty long. And most of the locations that I checked out really had no recordables. Now, obviously, I don't go to some place and go, hey, guess what the electric department did? Or, hey, guess what this place did? I didn't do that. I am going to show another municipal, and I'm not going to out the municipal, of what the numbers were. Exactly what those numbers were. Now, this was a municipal that had no recordables last year. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, but if you take a look at the shortcuts, not wearing PPE, not wearing your safety belts, etc., if there is an injury in 2016, it's going to be based upon our behavior. That is the best indicator of how safe we are, what we're doing now. And when we have a near miss or make a shortcut, that's when we need to stop, bring our brethren together and say, listen, we got to stop this. Eventually it's going to bite us. Eventually it is going to be a recordable. Now's the time to look at those behaviors and stop that. We do that through what's called behavior-based safety. Now, behavior-based safety isn't a new concept. It's been around for a long time, but nobody's really adopted it. Now, behavior-based safety is something that you do on a daily basis. And let's be honest, safety is not a simple approach. Quite honestly, if we're really safe, some people will say it's really actually kind of hard. But what are the results? How hard is it to suffer an injury and then you're out of work for a month and a half? That's even harder. But once you get into, well, that's right, you almost had an injury back there. He almost had to give you mouth to mouth. Now, you'd have been in real big trouble then, okay? You guys seem so far away back there. Behavior-based safety has actually been around since about the 40s. Even though OSHA came into being in 1970 when President Richard Nixon signed it into a bill, in about 1972 it really kind of came into force. Behaviors are what we do today, or the lack thereof, and the way that we approach it and apply it to safety. Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer stated, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Things are not always what we think they are. But when we stop and really look at it, and even sometimes look at the underneath of safety, that's when we really see how safe we are. Have a lot of time on their hands, didn't it? Did you know at first when you looked at it, it was two people? You thought it was a chameleon, right?
Yeah, that would be weird.
You instantly saw the two people. You guys are awesome. Some people are going yes, some people are going no. But when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Normally we just take the fact that we're safe and we take that into autopilot, and most folks are. They know what's expected of them. Because nothing's happened, they don't really bring it to the forefront and discuss it. And unfortunately, we're reactive to safety. The time we start throwing attention and money at us, God forbid, when somebody gets injured. Oh my gosh, we have to do something about this so this never happens again. Once again, that's a lagging indicator. And quite honestly, it's inappropriate. The best people to look at leading indicators are you. You guys are the ones in the field. You know the decisions. You know the behaviors that you exhibit. And I'm in that mix too. Each and every one of us have certain decisions that we make. When we look at it, it really didn't amount to much. But the decisions that we're making, especially if they're shortcutting, can lead to catastrophic issues. So behavior-based safety, a safety partnership between management and employees that continually focuses people's attentions and actions on theirs and others' daily safety behavior. I probably say this every time that I visit, but it's well worth repeating. I am my brother's keeper. I'm involved in myself. To take and make sure that I'm safe and go home to my family. But I am my brother's keeper. One of the numbers I'll share with you was kind of staggering in one location. I asked if a coworker looked over and watched you making a safety shortcut that could injure you, and they confronted you, would you be mad at it? They said no. In one location, 100%. You see me do something wrong, please let me know. I mean, I don't want to be another one of those statistics. And then the next question was, over the past year, have you witnessed a coworker taking a safety shortcut or watching them doing something dangerous that could result in their injury? And amazingly enough, 70 to 75% said I wouldn't say it. It'd be kind of scared to say it. Is that really what it is? We're afraid. You can confront me about taking a safety shortcut. By all means, please do so. But I don't know. I mean, I'm looking around. You're pretty scary looking. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, a younger guy, who's new here? Who's a newbie? You're a newbie. Are you going to confront him about taking a safety shortcut? Hell no. Look at him. No, you're not. Look at him. He's scary. And I think that's what it is. Especially, we have some well-seasoned, very good employees here that are experts in the field. So once again, newbies are those other people that are here. And we see somebody maybe taking a safety shortcut. Is that what it is? We're afraid to confront them? I mean, after all, if I was out in the field just to meet you guys and I'm talking, I'm backing up, and there's a trench behind me that's 7 foot deep, you'd say, stop. And I said, you grab me. You're going to fall in that trench. And that trench is the metaphor for that safety shortcut. If we would stop somebody from falling in the hole, why don't we do that with other things? And I think the reason why, and this isn't my opinion, it's from workers just like you. It's because we don't have it in our culture to say, listen, I'll watch your back, you watch mine. Okay, we're okay with that, right? If I see something, but somebody take a safety shortcut, I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to confront you so that I don't want you to get injured. We just automatically go on autopilot and just assume you're going to confront me, but I don't know if I'm going to confront you. When we have that in our safety culture, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at do change. And it's an investment in relationships, just like your family at home. If I don't invest in my relationship with my wife, 1 year from now, I'll wake up with a whole new model. We may not even know each other. So like I said, I'm really getting away from the term regulation. Anybody can look up a regulation. And quite honestly, we all know that the OSHA regulations are written in workers' blood. That's how they got there. If it wasn't a concern, it wouldn't be in the OSHA law. It wouldn't be in the OSHA 1910 or 1926 standard. It wouldn't be there. I'd like to replace regulation with relationship. Because quite honestly, when we get there, that's true behavior-based safety at its finest. At its very core, BBS, or behavior-based safety, is based on a larger scientific field called organizational behavior management, which sounds like a really big word that you have to have initials after your name to quite understand it, and that's nothing can be further from the truth. It's what you do in the organization and how you manage that. That's a tailgate meeting. That is people coming together and investing together. That's coming together and congratulating one another when you do, on a quarterly basis, congratulating each other for having a good, safe work environment, and having a cookout. When's the last time that you had a cookout with one another, breaking bread with your brothers, and saying, hey, congratulations, we had a great time this year. Our quarter, we did a really good job. When you have that as a value, who doesn't like to have cookouts? And it's a very inexpensive thing to do. And quite honestly, everybody can bring a covered dish, and it's a great way to celebrate with one another. We don't think that's the place to do it. So please consider doing that on a quarterly basis to congratulate one another for having a good, safe work environment. You know, we have to start someplace. We can learn from those who have gone before us. All the mistakes that they've made. I mean, we can do research and find out some of the mistakes that people have made and apply it to ourselves so that we don't make the same mistakes.
Trouble in the house, that's definite. Our company probably got their wires all tangled up. Go on up and straighten out the mess.
What am I doing? You know I get dizzy in high places.
You're dizzy in low places. Get up there.
Please.
Ready up. Heave up. Heave up. Heave.
You stretched my nose out of shape.
Sometimes you can go to a construction site and it almost looks like you're dealing with or watching the Three Stooges. No PPE, no safe work practices, performing job tasks they're not qualified to do, and there are a lot of Three Stooges. Additionally, when we're in the workplace, we want to make sure that we're using the proper tool for the job. We don't want to adapt and say, well, I'm going to take this tool and use it for this job when it's not really designed to do that.
You ever notice how winding your window down by hand makes you look lower middle class? You might fix that. First of all, what you want to do is get the window winder right out there. Throw that away. Next, get yourself one of these battery-powered hand mixers like this here. You ever notice on these how the blades go in opposite directions? Remember that. I hope you're referring back to that later on. These are real cheap, especially if the blades are missing. Okay, if I wind the window up, all I do is stick one of these blade receptacles over the window winder shaft, and then just hit the button. How do I wind it down? Well, after that reversing direction thing comes in that I was referring to earlier. I just pop that on.
Well, is safety really first with all of us? I mean, we all say that. And first and foremost, they've taken a look at these slogans, these posters, put up all around the shop. And over the last 30 to 35 years, they found that these posters don't work. By slapping a poster up on a wall, yes, it's a nice slogan, but they really have very little to no impact on the worker's psyche or behavior-based application to keep safe. So when the job gets tough, or when the job is running over, or we have to add another equation, it's going to take another half an hour to an hour to get the application at engineering control, do we stop work and go back and get it? I mean, after all, it's going to take more time, half an hour, maybe take 2 more hours. Do we weigh out the risk and say, you know what, I'm just going to do it without those engineering controls? Maybe the wrong PP, maybe the wrong tool. Is safety first with us? Maybe it's second. Maybe to some people it's third. Maybe if a boss tells you get out there and do it as quickly as possible, maybe it's fourth because of money issues. We have to make sure that we determine that safety's first. You know, all it takes is for one person to have an injury. And really what it comes down to is people just want to report it. You know, most of the videos that I show are somebody from a cell phone taking, the video of what's going on. Now, I have to question this here. I doubt very seriously if that's real. And I ask most people to go, do you think that's real? Most people go, no. But then there'll be 2 or 3 people in the crowd that will go, that's really nothing. I have witnessed some pretty crazy things. I have a picture that was just emailed to me 2 weeks ago. And it's 2 electricians on the 3rd floor. And the one electrician has a body harness on, and they hook a lanyard onto his dorsal D-ring. Now, the other electrician's inside, the other one is outside of the window, 3 stories up, trying to reach around to take care of this light that's on the outside. Now, I ask you, even if you're holding with both hands on this lanyard, if that electrician was to fall, would you be able to stop him? No, both of them would probably get pulled out, but at least the one would. So, even though I question this, most people will look at it over the past 5 years have probably watched somebody doing even a crazier thing. And when we look over and watch people do crazy things, or we're about ready to do that shortcut, do we stop and say, you know, I need to modify the behavior? That's behavior-based safety application. This is a real picture, though. I mean, I'm sure it seems like a good idea, but if the guy falls in the drink because one guy loses his footing, or they slip off, would it be an accident or on purpose? I really question this one here. Because how did he get back up there? But if we use one bucket or 2 buckets, isn't it the same thing? You know, we have a tendency to minimize our shortcuts. Well, I only used this, or I only did that for just, or I'm only going to be doing this job for maybe 10 seconds. Said the man who worked with a grinding wheel that was locked out because it needed to be replaced and the thing exploded. I think I told you that 2 years ago. And part of the wheel went through his cheek and he spit out pieces of the grinding wheel out of his mouth. You know, we can say this, if you don't wear the correct PPE, the joke's on you, but it is no joke. I mean, because we do care about one another, if somebody gets hurt, it's not just on them. I've heard this before. Hey, if the fool wants to do that and take the shortcut, that's on them. But when so-and-so does get hurt, it does affect us. You know, just looking around at the camaraderie that we have here, people care about one another. And I think if we realize what could happen at the end result if we didn't apply safety, and somebody did get injured, or God forbid, became a fatality, I don't know if we could ever forgive ourselves. So yeah, it is something we care about, we care deeply about. So safety is for the birds. You know, a lot of people say this, you know, I don't know about safety. Safety's kind of for the birds. Now, I know you guys don't do this. I've come here multiple times and you guys have been wonderful. You treat me like one of your own. So you guys pick on me, which, you know, it's when they're real polite to you all the time, that's when you worry. But when they pick on you and then you put practical jokes, you know you're one of the guys. But I can tell you this, there's some locations that I go, and when I do audit walkthroughs, when I take my AMP hat off and I put my other hat, which is kind of like an OSHA inspector, it's amazing what you hear people say. Oh, here comes the safety guy, put your hard hat on. Oh, you better put your boots on, you better wear your gloves, you better put your eye protection on. It's like, is that the only time that they really worry about safety? Sometimes I feel like a big blue dodo bird. Oh, here comes the safety guy. Oh, here comes the fire. We better make sure that we do things safely. We don't want to get written up or something like that. I feel like a big blue dodo bird when I go in sometimes, like Doppy dodo bird, talk about safety, you know. Okay, here he goes again. I found a perfect little video that kind of shows how I feel, and I'd like to share it with you.
How we respond to these triggers is a complex tapestry of previous conditioning based on our life experiences. Our job is to recognize the triggers that reinforce habits that don't serve us well, and to replace those habits with ones that guide us to our goal, the habits of health.
So if habits are there, when we get stressed, we go to a comfort zone, and I agree with that. If a person's stressed out, they smoke, they go smoke. If somebody has food and they like to eat as a comfort, when they eat, it kind of replenishes that comfort area. What would be the comfort in making a bad decision or taking a safety shortcut? What do you get out of that? When a person takes a safety shortcut or does a job that they know is not putting all safety application to it, what's the comfort in that? What are they getting from that? Why would they make a decision if they know that if they get caught that day, that they could get injured or maybe injure somebody else? What's the comfort in it? Why would they take the safety shortcut?
Satisfaction of getting the job done on time.
Or maybe getting it done, maybe because they want to go take a shortcut there.
Makes you want to get home and finish the job that day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's something that's going to take you 2 more hours, who wants to stay around 2 more hours when they can take a safety shortcut? And then when we do it and we get away with it, it becomes a part of our habit. And it just becomes normalized. It normalizes the behavior. So allow me to share with you 7 safety habits that we can all invest in.
Have you ever wondered why you make certain decisions in a given moment or situation when you could have or should have made a better choice? It's like coming to a fork in the road. You feel the urge or impulse to go to the left, but your better judgment is telling you to take the path to the right. You give in to the urge and go left. Afterward, in frustration, you ask yourself, why did I go left when I knew I would be better off going to the right? Why do I keep choosing this when I want to choose that? Just as you have an immune system and a digestive system, you also have what we call a human decision system. This system is centered in the brain and is involved in every decision you make, good or bad. The key to your success in overcoming unwanted behaviors is learning how your human decision system works.
And when your gut feeling tells you, this may not be a good idea, you need to challenge it, regardless of what that bad decision is. So the first step we take is think safety is hard. When it comes to safety, safety is hard. I mean, after all, if safety was easy, there would be no accidents, incidents, concerns in the workplace, because it'd be simple. But you know, it doesn't have to be extremely hard. HARD stands for an acronym: hazard, assessment, risk, and duty. We sometimes think that safety is somebody else's duty, your bosses, the supervisor, the safety guy, OSHA. But all of us know the hazards that come along with our job. Do we, on a regular basis, assess the risk, communicate with our brothers about what those risks are, and then set out to mitigate those risks by putting engineering controls in place and making sure we wear the proper PPE and do the jobs as the safest manner possible? If we don't, do we look at what's the risk? If I do this and it bites me, is it an accident or is it on purpose? And who has the most to lose? Just ask the last person who was off work for a long period of time because of an injury. They'll tell you that the risk wasn't worth the injury. And then duty's a big thing. Our duty isn't just to one another and ourselves. You know, if your child, if your kids that have a job were doing the same safety shortcuts as you would you be okay with that if you knew they were doing that? If your 16 or 17-year-old wasn't wearing their seatbelt or texting while they were driving or had a job someplace where they weren't wearing PPE and you knew it, you would clearly say something to them because you know the risks. So when it comes to duty, it's all of our jobs because there's a family that's expecting you to come home to them. The second part is wear the gear. Personal protective equipment is your last resort. And it was provided to you free of charge, absolutely free, but that's not where the problem lies. Additionally, everybody here knows all the PPE, what's used, what's needed. So to talk about why you would wear it is mute. The big question is, why don't we? Why don't we wear the PPE when it's required? Employees must invest in their work environment and make the right choice. Our third habit, avoid the shortcuts. Now this is what's going to be hard for some people because some of the shortcuts we make, we may not even realize it. I mean, after all, when you're driving here, you come to a stop sign, do you just kind of roll through the stop sign or do you come to a complete stop, look to the left, look to the right, look around, and then take it, or you just roll? Because what happens, we get so comfortable in understanding that chances are if it's a four-way stop, the other people are going to stop, that we just automatically assume it's going to be safe to just proceed forward. Through team effort, identify what are the shortcuts and then eliminate them. Number 4, send the message. And this has to do with the group meetings that you guys have and coming down and saying, listen, how safe are we? What is our goal for 2016? And break it down quarterly. And when you hit those goals, come together and celebrate. How can we accomplish the goal together as a team? And every person has a right to call and knock it off, come together and say this isn't working and what we need to do. And how will we measure those goals? Quite honestly, the best way to measure it is through your questionnaires. You know, and it doesn't have to be something that's either difficult too. It's being honest. If you have a group that's really honest and everybody has a right to speak up, that's a good measurement. But when somebody speaks up and says we got a problem or we need this or we need this corrective action, what I've seen with most meetings is people don't enforce it. People come up with really good ideas and things that need to be corrected. They're actually waiting to see it happen. They want it to happen. Other people want to see that happen. And if no change comes about, then most people just won't speak up. So it has to have something that's changed and follow-up so everybody can see that progression. Number 5, the team has to be supportive. from the top to bottom, behavior-based safety will only succeed when employees give and receive ongoing support with management support to say, this is what we need to happen. If we need more PPE, get it. If we need a special tool, get it. If there's something we need to correct, get it. We need more training, get it. When you have that, that's a great foundation for behavior-based safety. Number 6, this went out probably in the 70s. The taskmaster crack the whip mentality does not work. Pointing the finger at somebody and saying, I'm blaming you, or looking for blame, or something. Yes, certain situations have causal factors. Yes, certain decisions that we make can lead into certain near misses. But the blame game doesn't work. Identify the issues and fix them. Point out your successes, and quite honestly, employees should be motivated to come up and talk about their near misses. Talk about mistakes. When everybody can come to the forefront and do that, other people learn from your mistakes. Do you remember last month when I told you I went through a stop sign? Do you remember that? That was embarrassing. And it's real embarrassing because my wife keeps bringing it up. I'm a safety geek. I'm also a part-time police officer. But you know what? Other people can learn from that too and go, you know what? I had the same thing. Like I said before, the average driver over the last 30 days has either crawled through a stop sign, went through the stop sign, or went through a red light and didn't even know that they did it. But when we stop and evaluate how we're doing things, then and only then can we say, okay, I need to fix it. And it's not about blame. It's about scientifically looking at our behaviors. And number 7, situational awareness. Situational awareness means a lot of things to different people. But this is the simplest approach. Understand your environment and making critical decisions. Very few times do people, when they go into the environment, they just stop. And as an investigator, stop. And look around. Start looking around and say, what am I concerned about here? What's the job? Oh, I'm by the roadway. What are we going to work? Yeah, we're going to be working out the roadway. So what are we going to need to be safe? Oh, we're going to be digging in the dirt. Well, we're probably going to need to take a look at soil. We're going to be probably by underground lines. We've got to make sure that those are clearly marked and go through those step by step. Most people, if they stopped and went to your work environment, just looked around your work environment, you'd see the potential for slip, trips, falls, or things where people could knock themselves into something, knock their head into something. So hopefully investing in these 7 habits will help you reach success. 7 ineffective safety practices and what to do instead. The first thing we're going to do is come together as a team. So what I'd like everybody to do is come on out here and stand on this tarp here. Okay. How many people here, and we can have this, how many people here would like to be an outside entity to give from the outside information to the inside so we can figure this problem out? Is there anybody who just wants to supervise and give some input? Okay. Now, you're a very important person. Now, from the outside, you can give input, but you can't touch them and you can't touch the tarp. Is there anybody else that would like to be a supervisor to help give input versus do the actual exercise? Okay. Is everybody okay? Because we have one, okay, you want to be? I don't want to be, no. Are they kicking you out or something? Yes. Well, do you want to be on the inside or the outside? Well, if you, okay. Is there anybody who'd like to be a supervisor over here? Okay, everybody's good. Okay, now everybody's fixed. From here on out, you can't step off the tarp. You can clearly give some advice from the outside, but you can't touch them or touch the tarp. Okay. You guys have to brainstorm a way that without getting off the tarp, you flip the tarp completely over without one person getting off. Most people do think it is. It can be impossible. If we say that this problem that's up against us right now is impossible, then everybody else hears it's impossible, and we're at a standstill and we don't ever attempt to change it. We don't flip it over. The exercise starts here. No, you can talk. He can talk to you. He can give you advice. Everybody can talk. He can touch the tarp. But as an outside entity, he can touch the tarp. Okay, let's first. Oh, okay. Maybe one person stepped over. Now you got one person out. They just put okay, now there you go. Straighten it out. Everybody get there. Don't step off. Everybody step off. There you go. Straighten it out.
Clearly, once again, clearly I'm the smartest one.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, good job. You know, amazingly enough, we look at something and think that it can't be done. And I've heard a couple of people going, I don't think this can be done. And I thank each and every one of you guys for doing this exercise. Some people are looking, I don't want to stand on a tarp. But yet you did it. And there were probably 3 or 4 different ways to do it. I didn't hear one person say, that's not how we do it in our department. I didn't hear one person say, that's not how we do it on our shift. You were presented with a problem. You came together. I didn't have one person say, that's a bad idea. You figured out you had a problem. You came together and figured it out. And it's no different than any other problem. And imagine if we did that when we looked at certain safety issues. Like we're looking at a problem and go, how do we do this the safest way possible? Do we come together and look at it and say, this is the safest way to do it? Because honestly, it can't be anybody else but you. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, you guys know, I say this all the time, it's true. You know the environment better than anybody else. You are the experts in the field. Even getting somebody who does your job, even if they came out 2 days, they wouldn't know the dynamics of your job. You have to do it. And it's got to be your brothers that are in the same field. So what's wrong and what do instead? Don't look at the things that are in the past. We can learn from them, but that's not the true indication of how safe we are. We need to focus on our leading indicators. Those are our behaviors. Injury-based incentives, they don't work, and I'll tell you why. If people are told you don't have any injuries or no issues, everybody's going to get this bonus, or you'll be able to get this, new boots or whatever, what happens is nobody reports the injury or the near miss because they want those incentives. The best thing is behavior-based reinforcement system. Awareness training is not, this is what we're doing today is an awareness training. Necessary but not sufficient enough. Need-based training, that's from you. That's every single day. Motivational signs, as I mentioned, they've shown us time and time again. Motivational signs, all safety, all injuries are preventable, safety first, those things don't work. Motivational consequences are, hey listen, what do we have to lose? We look at the risk, and if we continue to keep doing something unsafe, what are we going to lose? And it's one another. The blame and discipline game doesn't work. Analyzation and action on your part does. You're great at your job. How we do it safely and our job abilities are two different things. So I think that's what most people say. I'm afraid because they're going to think I'm telling them that they can't do their job. They're just maybe not doing it safely. So we want to encourage their business. And that safety comp, that person that's going out looking for somebody, that doesn't work. Safety coaching is a much better way to do that. When we do that, when we invest in a safety culture that will last until we are able to retire from this job. As I mentioned, many of us are coming close to the end of our jobs. We want to have all of our appendages, we want to have our brains together, so that when we do retire, we owe no more to the work environment, we're able to go home and spend it with our kids, our grandkids, and maybe if we're lucky, great grandkids. So that we say, let's go take a walk or go fishing. We can get up out of that chair and really enjoy that investment. I mean, not one person wants to invest in a retirement and not be able to enjoy it. That safety culture that we have is an investment for our health and wellness. And hopefully, just hopefully, if you come back 10 years later and you visit the place where you work, you'll see the same safety culture moving just as strong as what it is as what you're investing in now. So thank you for your attendance today. Thank you so much for your investment in safety. Take care of yourself and each other. Remember, safety is contagious. Don't be afraid.